Hey, welcome back to another episode of Family Matters in Marshfield. It's in this podcast that we talk about all things family. We talk about marriage, we talk about parenting, we talk about kids, teenagers, grandparenting, all the things that make up our family. And right now, we're in the middle of a Christmas series. We're just talking about various things that can impact us during Christmas, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of those things. And today, I've got a friend of mine, Stephen McNeil. He's a family pastor in South Carolina, Lexington, South Carolina. He's become just a great friend, and he's going to talk to us today and in a few other videos about marriage. He'll be with us also throughout the year as we explore how we can grow and develop our marriages. One of the things I love about Pastor Stephen is he is genuinely one of the best family pastors, family ministers in the church that I know. He's very passionate about marriage and parenting, kids, teenagers, understanding where kids and teenagers are at their specific phases. But really, one of the things that I think he lights up the most about is helping families or helping marriages thrive, not just to navigate life, but to thrive. And both he and Morgan, uh, they really invest heavily in their church leadership with marriages, hosting an annual marriage retreat and other date nights. And so you're going to enjoy listening to some things that he has to share with us related to marriage. So, Stephen, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're with us. I'm glad you've committed to jump into these conversations just to help us just navigate marriage and family ministry and just the way that relates to life. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your family, about briefly about your some of the places you've been and how that's impacted your view of helping families.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you, Rich, for having me on. And I feel blessed to know you as a friend, as a pastor. Look up to you so very much just in the short 3 years that we've got to know each other. So hard to believe that, but so thankful for you and your family and your ministry. And we miss you dearly. I miss you dearly. So just want to say that to you. When you talk about when we talk about this whole thing of family at Christmas time, I think about my family. Just my wife Morgan, who is a second grade teacher at Northside. She's taught for over 15 years now, and then we got two teenagers, a 11th grader and a ninth grader, both very active in what we call the busyness of life, and so we're in the
Yeah,
midst of
pretty
basketball season.
yeah, pretty
We just
successful athletes.
Yeah, well, they're okay. The Lord has blessed them, so we just want them to honor the Lord in what they do, and so whether you win or lose, we want them to shine a light. That's the challenge as us as parents to try to push them in that direction. And but we just we're in the midst of basketball season, just finished up cross country season, and then we're rolling to baseball season. So that's a little bit
When
about
is
us.
gymnastics season? I know when the other seasons are. When's gymnastics season?
Well, we don't do gymnastics anymore because
Oh wow.
she decided she just wanted to focus on running. So praise
Okay.
the Lord. The Lord answered that prayer, and
So you're
so
no
she's
longer a gymnastic dad.
that's right. So we're just training for a half marathon. We're running one in March. My daughter Campbell and I, and so we're super excited about that. Um, this is my 23rd year in ministry. God has moved us around. I'm what they called for a long time. I chase, um, let's just say, the bigger opportunities, and that's a part of my testimony. So I don't mind sharing it to any young person that may be called into ministry that watches this. Listen, be careful. Always follow the Lord. Don't chase your own. Don't chase your own agendas. And so I married somebody who is my wife is a big, strong um, pillar of faith. And she has always gone with me. We have challenged our family to move around. And the Lord has blessed in that, but it's also been a challenge as well. And so we're so thankful to be where we are now in this incredible season. And a lot of that's because of Rich. So I just throw a lot out to him on that and opening the door, giving us the opportunity at Northside, just a great church. but through his his faithfulness in that. But we've served in preschool ministry, children's ministry, student ministry, college ministry, young adults ministry, rec ministry. We could just name it all. I can't sing, so I can't lead worship, but we've had the opportunity to just do a lot of ministry and seen God do a lot of neat things in us and through us as well.
Yeah, and so because of the different places you've served and the different areas you've served, you've really seen the next generation, preschoolers, children, teenagers, young adults, parenting. Like
Mhm.
you've probably seen so many different scenarios
Yeah.
over the last several years, last couple of decades. How has that impacted and influenced how you see the family and how we can help families today? What is that that now kind of drives you?
Well, I come from a divorced family. I come from a family that was, those type of things, and so a lot of that's my driving force. But also, what I see today and what I've seen in ministry is that families, um, they don't know how. They don't know how. They don't know what they're doing. And
And
so when
and
we don't
and
know,
we put ourselves in the same boat. Like we at times, even though we've seen and done a lot, we still feel like we're making it up.
we are, and it's every day's a different day. Every day's a new day, and we have just as busy schedules as they do. And what we've come to as families is we have this dry cleaner mentality. We've said it over and over. Like we wrinkle it all up, and we want to take it to church, and we want them to starch the shirt and get it straight in an hour, and then we want to pick them back up. And because parents don't know what they're doing. They don't have the biblical foundation. They don't know. They don't have biblical community. They don't know anywhere to go to. And so what's so important about family ministry, what you're doing, is that we want to try to encourage parents. You don't have to have all the answers, but you got to be willing to ask the questions.
Yep.
And that gives us an opportunity, not as a church to come in and say we know the answer,
Right.
but that we're going to work together to try to find the answer.
Yeah, and that's really the driving force behind this whole initiative of Family Matters in Marshfield is we are for families,
That's right.
not the perfect family, but we are for. We want to come alongside. We want to encourage. We want to nudge. Sometimes we need to push, and sometimes we just need to to wait right behind. We are for families, and so because it is so challenging.
That's right. Well, and I love you that you say that. No perfect family. And I think about Christmas time and probably what you're preaching at your church is you think about Mary and Joseph who had no idea, like everything that they were going through, they had no clue what they were fixing to do as parents.
Yeah, matter of fact, my sermon Sunday, I'm going through different Christmas carols, and
Okay.
we're talking. So the song this week was "Silent Night," and as I looked at the lyrics and I looked at the text, and then I thought about reality, it
No
really
silent
was
night.
about not so silent night,
That's right. That's right.
and because that's real life. And so let's talk here about marriage here for a few minutes,
Okay.
and I want to talk specifically about communication.
Mm.
Um, what have you seen or kind of what have you experienced related to the importance of communication,
Mm.
and then maybe the what happens when there's a breakdown of communication?
Well, when you use that word communication, man, we could be here for several hours talking about just that word because again, for every couple, it's different. Communication looks different. Uh, it- you know, my wife and I, we see each other in the morning. We give each other a high five. We may not talk till 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and she works in the same building that I do. So communication looks different, and communication changes as you go through different seasons with your kids. As they begin to get older, and cell phones, and all these different things, communication looks different. But one of the things is, Rich, as you asked me about that, I looked up a verse, Proverbs 4:23. It says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Every word you speak and action you take comes from within." All right. So when I think about communication, I always got to think, where is my heart? And so when it comes to my wife and my children, and my friends and family and everybody you go along with, when it comes, especially during Christmas time, is like, where's my heart? Like, I've got to check where I am, because I've got to make sure, as the spiritual leader in my home, that I make sure that I'm leading the right way, because everything flows from how I respond, how I talk, how I treat my kids in the morning, how I help them throughout their day, my wife, how I encourage her in her job. Communication, it all begins with me. So when we talk about how are we communicating in our marriages, I got to ask myself first and foremost, how am I spending time with the Lord and making sure my heart's in the right place? Um,
Yeah, I think that's so foundational. We can always just overlook that and say, yeah, I know that, but give me the good stuff.
yeah,
And that is centrally the good, like that. Everything lays on that.
yeah. And I think, one of the things I wrote down, and I just want to share a lot of this with you, but enjoying marriage in the midst of the grind. Y'all, the holidays is the biggest grind that you'll ever face. In marriage, when counseling and premarital counseling, all that kind of stuff, you've heard over and over, your in-laws, your family are going to be the biggest challenge. And you go, no way, those people love me the most. Yes, you're right, but they push you the most as well. And so for you as a couple to make sure you're communicating like, hey, we can't commit to everything. We can't be at everything. We're not going to make our kids go to everything. It's okay to say no. It's okay to, uh, it's okay not to have to be a part of all of it. And that's hard as a pastor. You know that, because you're drawn to everything and you feel like you have to be at everything. And in your marriage, you've got to learn to say no, because you've got to protect you. Um, and then I always say this as well: enjoy marriage in the midst of the grind, but also you got to laugh a lot. Communication, you got to laugh. If you can't laugh at each other, you're never going to enjoy life. Uh, if you communicate, my wife will tell you, my joy every day is to try to see how many times I can make her laugh. If I can make her laugh in the midst of all that we've got going on, I think I've accomplished something.
And
And
so
I've
let
seen,
me ask you, like if you've reached a place in your marriage where you're not laughing
hmm,
together, how do you take that first step to reignite that? Because the first step's hard. Like
yeah.
when you've reached a place where there's not laughter between a husband and wife, how do you reignite that?
Well, I think the biggest thing you got to do first and foremost is you got to go do a self check on yourself. Like, why have you stopped laughing? Why have you stopped trying to make her laugh? Why have you stopped? Like, what's taking the joy from you? Because again, your priorities always have to be in line. As a married couple, as parents, first and foremost, Christ first, your spouse second, your kids third, then your job. You start putting that in priorities. A lot of times when you're not laughing anymore, it's because your priorities have got out of line. You've decided to put something else in front of your relationship with the Lord, and then you've put something else in front of your spouse. And so the joy has taken away from that, because your time, all your energy is preoccupied with something else. And so you don't laugh as much because you're so worried about something else you got to get checked off on your checklist, or something else you've got to get accomplished. And you miss the joy of what the Lord's put in front of you, what He's given you as a gift. When I think about it as a gift, my wife is a gift, my kids are a gift. And so we take that for granted and we lose the joy. I say this all the time: laughter is the shortest distance between two people. You want to get back together, laugh together. Um, and I think for couples during the holiday season, you need to even laugh even more than you do throughout any other time of the year. Because if you don't, you'll get swallowed up by it. The enemy will trap you, he will pull you down, and you will feel miserable when you ought to feel this greatest joy.
Yeah, I forget the exact quote, but it basically says that if the enemy can't get to you, then he'll make you busy,
That's right.
um,
That's right.
and that becomes kind of the ultimate distraction.
Yeah.
What else would you say as we kind of bring this about communication? Sometimes we think we need the 15. What are the 15-point plan?
Yeah,
to
yeah,
solve things. And a lot of times, if you got 15 things, if you've got more than 3 or 4 priorities, you've got no priorities. And
yeah.
so we talk about check our heart, and we talk about laughing. What else would you say about communication during this season?
Well, and I'll give you a couple of those points here in just a second, but I want to say this as well. Like when you talk about communicating with your spouse, I want to say this to you: fight fair.
What
Make
do
sure
you
you
mean
fight
by that?
fair. Um,
I want to
uh,
win.
well, yeah, we want to win. Like when I go into a fight, I know that I'm going to win. But fight fair. We get really good, especially at Christmas time. We want to tear each other apart. When you want to fight fair, I want to also share. Like I want to say this: no blame game. You know, like don't like you're both at fault. We're sinful people, right? Like the last time I checked, I'm the biggest sinner that there is, and then so the blame game is pretty important. But I always think this when you talk about communication is you got to check yourself first, and a lot of those you got to check the gauges. It's like when you get in your car, like if the fuel light is on, that gauge is not good. Like you got to go fill it up. If the oil light's on, you got to check. Let me see if I need to put some oil in it. If the tire pressure light is on, you got to check. Make sure you put air in your tires. You got to check yourself first. Um, but if I could just wrap it up with this, when it comes to communication, these 5 things have just meant the world to me, and they're really simple things. I don't want you to try to memorize like 3 things, but I want to share these things because I think they're so important. When it comes to communication, empathy, you got to show empathy. All right. And what does that mean? Putting yourself in the other's, place. Like where are they coming from? Try to put yourself there. Listening, you got to listen more than you talk. That's a hard one. I want to talk. I got a little bit of pastor in me. Rich, I know Rich likes to talk. He's got that drive in him. But we need to listen when it comes to communication. Um, we got to keep our emotions in check. I'm a very passionate person. So it's hard for me to keep my emotions in check because I want to win every argument. So if I can sway the crowd or anybody to come to I'm going to do it. Like that's a big one in communication. Take breaks. You don't have to solve it all at once.
Yes.
I think that's the hardest thing in communication is like we feel like we have to solve it right there. And the greatest thing I think that scripture teaches us is that Jesus went along and he prayed by himself. Like he's like, let me go and take a break.
Yeah.
And I think we as couples in communication, we got to take a break from time to time. And I think the last of this is make time. You got to make time to sit down without distraction. I call it 20 minutes a day. Like you literally need to sit down with your spouse 20 minutes a day, uninterrupted, no cell phones, no kids, no this type of thing. And you just need to talk. Let her express her day. Let her share what you may not really understand what she's talking about, but she wants to know that you're listening.
Yep.
And so take time, 20 minutes a day to just sit
And
down.
I think the key in that 20 minutes for success, because somebody's listening to this right now going, like 20 minutes at the same time.
Yeah, 20
What
minutes
are
at the
we
same
going to do
time.
for 20 minutes?
Yeah,
Um, Ask questions
that's right.
as whether uh, whether you're the man or the husband or the wife. Ask questions and listen to what's being said, because
That's right.
sometimes we can be intimidated by that. Okay, we just stare at each other and say, okay, now what? Just ask questions. It's not hard. Don't make it harder than it is.
Well, and I'm a sports guy, so I always like to use this analogy. When I'm on my phone and I'm strolling through and I see things about any type of sports thing, I'm asking questions like, why was that foul called? Or why was this called? Or why was this play ran? Or all this type of stuff. It's the same thing with your spouse. Ask questions. They may not make sense, but ask a question. Like, why did you teach that today? Or why did that kid get in trouble today? Or why did it's what you were saying, Rich, like ask questions that again, it may not be it doesn't have to be a really deep question. Just ask a question so she knows that you're listening.
Right. Yeah. Hey, those are really good practical things. I just want to say, if you're listening today, and maybe your marriage is in a rough place or in a hard place, and you hear that and you think about laughing, or you think about this, or you think about that, or you think about, I don't even know if there's hope. I just want to encourage you, take a step. Take a step, and don't let the whirlwind, and I've said that in other videos, don't let the whirlwind of this season prevent that from happening. Make that a priority. If you have to put it on your calendar to mark off 20 minutes a day, go ahead. Y'all sit down, y'all identify 20 minutes. Um, Push towards it. There are no perfect marriages. You look around and you may think people have perfect marriages. They're not. They probably were in a fight today, and they're disagreeing about something. They probably don't even know what they're fighting about. And so there are no perfect marriages, and I just want to encourage you: take a step, and really value communication. Stephen, thanks for joining us today, and we're going to have you on a couple more times during this Christmas series, and then I'm looking forward to some conversations throughout the new year. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching today on Family Matters in Marshfield. And make sure and take a point through each one of these Christmas series videos. Share them, pass them along to other people you know. We really want to help the families in our community, because if our families thrive, then everything else falls underneath that. And so thanks again for joining us today.